for the serious gamer.
Hey, it's Spider by NextGenTactics.com, and this is Mag Season 1, Episode 2, our first game of Suppression. As you can see, these are pretty big games. It's 32 versus 32, and actually it's the first Suppression game type you have unlocked is basically you're facing your own faction. Supposedly it's not real ordnance you're using, but treat it as any sort of team deathmatch type game, and that's what Suppression is really. It's a team deathmatch. You don't actually have a score count, but what you'll see, you'll have two bars in the top. One's red, one's blue. You actually have different spawn points as well. Two different spawn points on this map, on Suppression typically. So we are on the blue side. The people that are in your squad are the light blue arrows, and the other blue dots, darker blue dots, are all the rest of your teammates, your other 24 teammates. So you see the blue and red markers at the top. Basically, you have to deplete the red one before your blue one gets depleted, and that's all you do here. Again, it's just basic team deathmatch. There are three standard classes that you begin the game with. We're using the one, it's actually, I think the weapon's an AK-74U. I think they actually call it an assault rifle in this game, although it's a shorter range assault rifle as it's described, whereas in Modern Warfare 2, or Modern Warfare, sorry, the AK-74U is considered an SMG. So I don't know the maps at all. This is the first time playing this map. It's called Seer Arva something or other. Sorry, it's called Seer Darva Uplink, and I believe there's only one map available for the Suppression when you're basically practicing against your own teammates. So I hit that guy multiple times, and he ends up killing me. Great. So you can hip fire. There's melee attack with R3. You can aim down the sights. Right now, my sensitivities, both for my movement and my aiming, are at 50. I actually ended up bumping it up somewhat, and I'm actually going to attempt 100, because when you're tracking enemy players, whether you're hip firing or you're aiming down the sights, it's pretty slow to track. So we just nailed the guy right there. And you just got to get used to it. I mean, it's just like any new game. You got to get used to the controls. You got to get used to how it reacts. You're reloading. I haven't actually used any grenades yet, but with the class creation, and here are the different spawn points. Basically, they're essentially side by side, really. So it doesn't really matter which spawn point you pick on this map. Some of the other game types, you have different spawn points. And as you progress, I'm sure that you can open up new spawn points so that you actually spawn closer to the action. Because a lot of times, especially on Suppression, when you're spawning way back where we are, I mean, it's going to take you a few seconds to get back into the action. So yeah, we're going to stick with our assault class here. And again, when you're creating your class, you actually have 6 slots. You have a primary weapon, a secondary weapon. You have a couple equipment slots. You have some an armor slot, and a heavy weapon slot like an RPG that we end up equipping later on. So the equipment pack, and I don't actually discover this until a few games later. You have a personal health injector, I guess, for lack of a better term. I don't know what the actual term is. But you can actually equip it and inject yourself and heal. You don't actually heal over time in this game. You either have to have a medic heal you, or you heal yourself before you're actually dead. And sort of, I wouldn't say it's similar to Modern Warfare in where you have a last stand, because you can't actually use your equipment. But it's more like Killzone when you get mortally wounded and you're not quite finished off. You can sit there and hope that a medic can revive you. There happened to be a guy right at the ladder there, but I end up eating it. So you can wait there to get revived, or you can bleed out and choose to respawn. Now the respawn times are varied, and I believe, I'll explain to you how I believe it works. In Suppression, I'm pretty sure that the spawn times are set on a rotating 15-second timer. So respawns will occur every 15 seconds, whether there are teammates that are going to respawn or not. So that's why you'll see when you die and you see at the respawn clock, the timer varies. So, and what that means is if you have a lot of team members die within that 15-second period, they're all going to respawn at the same time. So you're not going to have continual respawns of you and your teammates. The other thing this means, and it becomes pretty useful, like communication is key in this game. So what I've been doing, because in some of the other game types the respawn time is a little bit longer, but you can actually communicate with your teammates while you're waiting to respawn how much time is left, so that if you have teammates that are bleeding out, let's say they're waiting for a medic, but the respawn timer is at, let's say, 5 seconds, and I'm calling it out, then they may choose to bleed out so that they respawn right away. Whereas, if I'm calling it out at 15 seconds, then they can time it and maybe not bleed out for 10 seconds in hopes that a medic will come over to heal them, and then once they get down to about 5, if the medic hasn't come over, then they could hit bleed out and respawn. So there's a respawn timer. It's actually 15 seconds. So it kind of sucks when you end up hitting the respawn timer right at the very beginning at 15 seconds. But like I said, I start communicating with my teammates. I'll say, hey, respawn time 15 seconds. And like I said, if guys are bleeding out, then they can remain bleeding out for another 10 seconds before they hit X to bleed out, and hopefully somebody can heal them. Also, communicating enemy positions. I mean, it's pretty tough, 32 on 32 on this type of map. I'm sure some of the other maps are a little bit bigger with some more spawn points. I mean, we'll see as we progress. But calling out positions may be a bit more useful, and definitely more useful in some of the other game types, as you'll see. So again, we haven't actually used any grenades, but we will in some of the future games. This is actually part 1. The games are fairly long. Some of the sabotage games are set up for 20 minutes if you don't achieve your objectives, and these games end up being pretty long. So I think this game's about 15 minutes, so we cut it in 2. So this is part 1, and that's it. We'll continue with part 2 very shortly. I'm SpiderBite for NextGenTactics.com, and I'm out of here.